It's becoming increasingly apparent with each new episode of Volume 7 that Ren is becoming more and more agitated, a bit more cold towards those around him and a lot more focused on the mission ahead. But this has only started since the beginning of Volume 7, so something might have changed between Volume 6 and 7, but really no time has passed within the series. The only thing that has actually changed is the team's arrival in Atlas. So I think the changes in Ren are a result of the environment of Atlas itself, combined with his semblance. But before I get into all of that, I will say spoiler warning for those who have not seen Episode 6 of RWBY Volume 7, as I will be going over a couple of instances in that episode that would be considered spoilers. So just a fair warning on that. Now, Ren's semblance is something that's been known to us, the viewers, since Volume 4. He has the ability to mask negative emotions. Presumably positive emotions too, but we'll get into that in a bit. He can make himself and others around him completely neutral and undetectable to Grimm around them, which is, very useful for the world that they live in. But there's one other aspect of his semblance that I think was displayed back in Volume 4 that we haven't really discussed that much. When Tyrion came to attack Team Ranger, Ren was able to detect him coming, was able to sense him coming. You could chalk this up to a very keen sense of hearing, but I think it has to do with Ren's semblance. His semblance at his core deals with negative emotions, so I don't think it's that far out there that Ren has the innate ability to sense negative emotions around himself, especially if those negative emotions are targeting him. Tyrion, when he was going to attack Team Ranger, was probably oozing bloodlust and hostility towards all of them, something that Ren would definitely sense as negative. Though Tyrion, it would be a very positive emotion for him, and he was probably ecstatic in that, so interesting to know how that works. Maybe we'll get a more explanation later on in the series, but if Ren can sense negative emotions around him, that would be a very interesting innate ability. In fact, we have seen it already 2 more times in Volume 7. In Episode 1 of RWBY Volume 7, Ren sensed the Ace operatives attacking. Very last minute, though, as he wasn't able to do anything about it like he was with Tyrion, as with Tyrion, they were in an isolated village, and he could probably sense that one bundle of negative emotions moving fast towards them. In this case, though, they were in Mantle. Mantle's not really the most positive place in Atlas, so it was probably a bit more difficult to sense them coming until the very last moment. And then he sensed the Ace operatives' hostility. And I do say hostility as, at that moment, the Ace operatives saw them as lawbreakers. People with unauthorized weapons using them in the city of Mantle, so they probably weren't thinking of them very positively at the time. And then again, in Episode 6 of RWBY Volume 7, Ren was able to sense Ironwood and Clover entering the room as he was meditating. Now, this is something that a lot of people are pointing to as possibility for Clover being a traitor, as Ren sensed his hostility as he was entering the room. I don't actually think that's the case, as in Episode 6, Ren just kind of opened up his eyes like he heard a knock on the door or something, and like, oh, someone else is here, may as well acknowledge them. Whereas in Episode 1 of Volume 7, he noticed an attack coming. He noticed it at the last minute, turned to face it, but too little too late. I think it was different in that aspect. I could be wrong, and that could be a point to be made against Clover possibly being a traitor in the Ace operatives, but I think it's a lot more likely that what Ren sensed is the giant bundle of negative emotions that is currently James Ironwood, as since the fall of Beacon, since it was displayed to the world that his army turned on everyone, civilian and huntsman alike, and he wasn't able to protect Beacon, etc., all the blame that he is putting on himself, he probably hasn't felt very positive towards himself or the world around him since, months in the past. So I'm pretty sure that that's what Ren was sensing. But as I mentioned, the reason why he wasn't able to sense the Ace operatives coming until the very last minute was because of the negative emotions around him in Mantle. That it was kind of numbing his senses to hostility and things around him. I think that just upon getting to Mantle and the prolonged exposure that he's had, because I think they've been in Atlas at least a couple weeks now, that his semblance has actually started going out of control, that he can no longer suppress the sense of negative emotions around him, and that is making him increasingly agitated. And that's why he's being a bit more cold to those around him, because he doesn't want to distract himself with the positive emotions, because he wants to be able to sense the negative emotions, be able to sense danger about to approach him or those around him. We know that for sure he still cares about Nora, as in the most recent episode, when Nora did grab him and plant one on him, he seemed to be very happy in that moment as he embraced her as well, at least, you know, until the shit hit the fan for the rest of the episode. But Ren definitely does still care about Nora, probably still loves her, everything like that. It's just he doesn't want to allow himself to feel those emotions because it would be a distraction, especially with a whole bunch of negative emotions around him that is constantly bombarding him. If his semblance can't be turned off in that aspect, we've seen that with Crow, and also one other semblance that actually deals with emotions in the RWBY series that is canon. In the book After the Fall, there is a person who is introduced that the book follows for a good portion of the book that deals with negative emotions that he can't control. It's a very young child. I think August Caspian was about 10, I want to say, and his semblance is the ability to amplify the emotions of people around him indiscriminately, something that he can't control, something that's very dangerous for the RWBY series. And that brings up the question that maybe semblances that involve emotions are a lot more difficult to control. And that's why Ren is always a very focused person. He's very neutral, just as a regular person. He's very neutral, not very positive, not very negative, just a kind of blasé person. It brings up the question as to whether he's constantly using his semblance to some degree to, you know, push down his emotions, both negative and positive, so as not to react and so he can stay focused on the task at hand. But I don't know. It's really interesting to think that maybe semblances that involve emotions cannot be controlled that easily. And this is why, you know, Ren's semblance might affect positive emotions as well, as Ren himself doesn't really display that much positive emotion in general day to day. Similarly with negative emotion, unless it's the rare occurrence like he encounters the Knuckleavi that resulted in his parents' death. So yeah, there are instances where his emotion shows through, but generally it seems he's trying to suppress it, positive and negative alike. And now that he is constantly bombarded with the negative emotions in Mantle and Atlas, he's losing control. He's not able to turn it off, and it's just, he needs to focus on the mission and make sure that his emotions don't get out of hand so that he doesn't lose control of himself. What will happen if he loses control of himself, I don't really know, and it may be that something else happened, that maybe he encountered someone else or saw something else that is causing this agitation, but I think it's very likely involving his semblance. And I'd love to know what you all think down in the comments below. Do my ideas make sense, that it's the environment of Mantle, of Atlas, that combined with Ren's semblance, that he's able to sense the negative emotions around him that is causing this change or agitation within him? It seems like a fair amount of people do see this as already the case, as they pointed to Ren being able to sense Clover and Ironwood entering the room. So I think other people have a similar idea, but if you have any other things you would like to add to this theory, or any other ideas to explain Ren's agitation, I'd be really interested to know. So let me know down in the comments below. I look forward to discussing with you. Thank you so much for watching. Make sure to subscribe if you have not already and want to see more RWBY content. And with that, I'll see you guys in the next video.